The soundtrack can make or break a piece of art. It's been proven so many times that the music is what sets the tone of a scene. Okay, I'm sure you've seen a demonstration like this a million times, but just in case you haven't, what happens to the tone of this video if I cut the music? Or what happens if I show the same clips but with some different music? Yeah, music is ridiculously powerful, to the point where the wrong music will completely and utterly f*** up a vibe. And that's what this video is about. Tracks that ruin shit. This is not a real remote. This is not a real desk. But yeah, bad OSTs. Something like this. Alright, so normally when I'm deciding on a video topic, I'll do some surface level research just to see how many times the topic has been covered on YouTube. I thought, hey, I could talk about the effectiveness of music in video games. I wonder if anybody else has done that. It turns out, yeah, they have a lot. So much so that the title, The Power of Video Game Music, hasn't just been used once or twice or 3 times, 6 times. Jesus Christ, guys, you know YouTube has a search function. I'm copying. But here's the thing, while there is plenty to talk about with good video game soundtracks and how they elevate the medium, it's been talked about. Instead, I want to focus on the bad. The game soundtracks that assassinate the game that they're in. To be honest, I just kind of want to point and laugh. Let's partake in some good old-fashioned negativity. It'll be fun. So you can find multiple playlists of absolutely horrendous video game soundtracks. Some of my favorites being ones you have probably already heard. You have. They're famous. Firstly, Funhouse from Spiderman on the Sega Genesis. That's good shit. It's really the inclusion of the that sells this track. Actually, this track has a whole bunch of weird ad-libs. See, and of course, it's phenomenal. And as you might expect, pairing this with gameplay doesn't exactly improve it. Luckily, Funhouse is a short level in a game that nobody has ever played. So the suffering that it's caused is pretty minimal. My all-time favorite is actually part of the Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut DualShock Edition. I don't know why that is the actual title of the game. Japan? Japan. Yeah. It's the basement theme. Now, nothing is more important to horror games than atmosphere. And nothing amplifies good horror atmosphere than, I don't know, what is it? I literally don't know how to describe this sound. So I'm going to sample this part. Give me, yes sir, this part right here. God, I'm just like Kanye. God, this is gonna sound like a... Some other heavy hitters include Versus from Sonic Eraser, playing Tetris is a much better experience when you add a 1-minute loop of metal pipes. Actually, let me fire off some good ones for you. What's especially good about video game music, in most cases, it has to loop. Games let players play at their own pace. The player may be on a level for 10 minutes, 2 hours even, if they're journalists. That means designing a track that can loop seamlessly forever. And that kind of results in most video game music kind of just being atmospheric. And this might be a hot take, but it's pretty hard to mess up atmospheric music. Most video game music, good or bad, is unremarkable. It just kind of services the atmosphere, and that's great. That is all it needs to do. Sometimes game music should be unnoticeable. Actually, not sometimes, most times. It's probably the case that you haven't played most of the games that these soundtracks I've shown you are from. It's, as you know, actually quite uncommon to get hit with tracks this bad. Yeah, it's fun to laugh at tracks like this, but the reality is that most bad OSTs don't actually sound explicitly shit. So what makes a bad video game soundtrack in most cases? Well, in my opinion, it's pretty much anything that just breaks the immersion. Whether that be from it being badly integrated, extremely repetitive, or like way too shrill, badly looped. Like, I'm sure at some point you guys have played a game where one of the tracks will just straight up have like the most obvious loop at the end of the song. You can tell exactly when it repeats. Bonus points if that loop has a few seconds of silence in between each repetition. Great, just fantastic. Really makes you feel like you're playing a game. Or another example is Dragon's Quest XI, which has a notoriously shit OST. The reason being, I mean, even though any one of these tracks sound good on their own, like, let me play you this. This sounds good, but the problem is, it's like a 100-hour game, and there's just not that many tracks, so you're gonna end up just listening to these tracks over and over and over. Eventually, you die. Or like I said before, tracks that are just straight up implemented incorrectly, which it might be the worst offender. Like otherwise unnoticeable or even good tracks that are just played at the wrong time. They don't suit the mood. An example that comes to mind is in a lot of old adventure games, the soundtrack will be doing its job until you run into a puzzle section. The problem with puzzle sections, if you're dumb like me, is that you'll just often get stuck on puzzles. You'll get to a point where you're sitting there, not knowing the solution to a puzzle, and the track that was otherwise unnoticeable 30 minutes ago suddenly becomes mind-numbing. Every time the music loops, It takes away part of your soul. It's like it's taunting you at how incompetent you are at a puzzle designed for kids to solve. It's all good. Modern games have actually learned to slowly fade out the music when it comes to sections like this. You'll notice in a game like God of War that when you're sitting there not knowing where to throw your axe, what you're hearing is ambience. It's intentional because music, even good music, in sections like this just becomes obnoxious. One of my favorite soundtracks ever comes from a game called Dreamfall Chapters.
Yeah.
Without spoiling anything, there's a section towards the end of the game that has this very somber atmosphere. Just it's so good. You know, it's got such a vibe to it, and the music is fantastic for it. I especially love the part of the song that hits that dun 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 fire. But here's the thing. This section is pretty long, and this music loop, regardless of how much I like it, is only about a minute. Yeah, it doesn't stop. I am not using this. I'm not using the full length. The average player will end up listening to it over and over, easily over 10 times. It just flat out gets annoying and becomes a detriment to the experience. If it had played once or a few times and then just given me silence, or well, one, the game would be telling me to hurry up, but two, I think that would have worked way better. I think silence works in this room too. Like, the vibe is still intact. Another example of a soundtrack that is good, but the way it's implemented makes it ear-grating, is actually from Elden Ring. It's this. It's the period song. The whole of Caelid, honestly, to me, just sounds so unpleasant. It's this pretty scary ambient track with occasional moments of like violin. Honestly, when I first saw Caelid, this track was perfect. It was awesome. Thematically, it's perfect. It suits the area really, really well, but it's repetitive. And Caelid is a big place. This song, like the last example, doesn't stop. And I hate it. There's lots of things to do in Caelid. There are moments where you'll just straight up be fighting giant monsters, and this track just doesn't match at all. Oh, and I don't think I've ever hated a soundtrack more than
Street Fighter 6.
Specifically the garbage they got playing in the menus. I literally don't know a single person that plays this game that doesn't hate this game's soundtrack.
Survivalist, heroic as a tiger is.
Like, I get they were going for a more Street Fighter, graffiti aesthetic, rap music for the soundtrack, but what in the Eminem? What in the Macklemore am I listening to? Look, if you hate rap, you'll hate this. And if you love rap, you'll hate this even more. Genuinely. What audience were they trying to grab with this soundtrack? This is like if you took Logic and then added more corn, you made him double corn, and it has a vinyl?
Now break away, I'm about to bring it. I ain't never backing down. Took a step up to the plate. For my city, for my town. I do whatever it takes. I'ma go and get the crown. I'ma go all of the round.
So yeah, I believe there's straight up awful video game music, but I don't think video game OSTs need to be bad to actually hurt the gaming experience. The power of music in video games isn't just that it can elevate a game's native interactivity into immersion, but that it can also take that away. It can irritate you. It can make you feel like you're going insane. Just be grateful that 9 times out of 10, a game's soundtrack is passable. Seriously, soundtracks in games are one of the only consistently decent aspects. You're way more likely to find dog shit mechanics or an awful story in your video games. Yeah. Thanks for watching. What's the game OST that you hate the most? Let me know. And, you know, I'll see ya.